So welcome, everybody. It is Monday, September 9th, 2024. I am Dr. Elizabeth Ganthu, and I'm currently serving in the Center for Teaching and Learning Faculty Director position. And I'm very excited. As of the spring, I learned a little bit more about the really impactful, creative, and innovative work that's being done at the district office and across our system, focused specifically on wellness and how do we have more opportunities to really help support us as people. The biggest and best resource of Maricopa, right, is its people. And so how can we best support our wellness? And actually, Dr. Thomas Aubrey at South Mountain had let me know of a study that Dr. Spearer was going to be launching. And I'm very happy to say that today is the official launch date of this study, which is why we quickly brought him in. And so Dr. Spearer has been a leader in this space. He's the Wellness Coordinator Senior for the district office. And a lot of the projects that I have had an opportunity to get to know are really exciting. And it's just really great work that I think is going to really help be part of culture change here at Maricopa Community Colleges. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. David Spearer, who is our guest today and who's going to be talking to us a little bit more about wellness and this collaborative research study that's officially launching today. Dr. Spearer.
Thank you, Dr. Cantu. I hope everyone can hear me okay. First, I want to say that I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about not only Wellness Maricopa, but about the research study that Dr. Cantu alluded to. It is definitely a passion of mine, research, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself as far as being an academic and having the opportunity to provide that research or that opportunity to employees is just great. So I'm really excited to be here and talk with you today. So let me start about myself, just who am I? So I have a doctorate in applied physiology. It's from the Biobehavioral Sciences Division at Teachers College, Columbia University. My dissertation was actually on looking at cardiovascular conditioning in HIV patients. It was early 2000s, and I was working in a clinic where there was a large population of HIV positive patients. And we wanted to see whether or not, the disease or the virus actually affected cardiovascular conditioning and how the medications actually interacted in that way. I went on then to teach in clinical physiology, and I've been doing that for about 20 years, both in person and online. And most of my teaching was done in the New York area. You can probably hear it from my voice that I am from New York or the East Coast, and moved out to Arizona about 10 years ago. I absolutely love to teach. I love being in the classroom and love doing online teaching, which I'm sure if some of the faculty are here can say the same thing and has the same sentiment. But taking on this position here at Maricopa, I've only been here 2 years. So much more of an academic sense of things. And that's kind of where the research comes into play. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. During the time of COVID and probably in the last 5 years, I got involved in a few different companies related to telehealth and technology, specifically kind of developing devices and inventions that give people more of an authentic sports experience using motion capture and artificial intelligence. And so I've been involved in that area a little bit, although that's not I'm not very proficient at the AI part of things. I did bring into the field or into that project more of the exercise science and clinical physiology aspect. And I also direct a nonprofit that provides activities for children with disability. And that's across the country. We currently have 7 affiliates across the country. And Kids Enjoy Exercise Now has been around for about 30 years. I've been in the role of president of the national organization for about 4 years at this point. So I have my hands in a lot of different pots, but again, I really like to bring to fruition research. I want to find out, how either exercise or mindfulness really affects behavior, how it affects individuals in their daily lives. And I've looked at those aspects of sort of that physiology in terms of cardiovascular conditioning, athletic response time. I've looked at the validity of activity trackers. I've even studied Parkinson's disease. And yes, I did publish a couple of years ago a paper with a psychologist in England. We actually did kind of a collaboration both in New York and in Britain, looking at the effect of swearing on exercise. So if you have any questions on that, I'm more than happy to have that conversation. That always is a really good conversation starter. So again, really like to bring that research aspect to where I am, and I had the opportunity to do that here at MCCCD, and I'm really excited to tell you about it. Before we move on, I want to tell you a little bit about Wellness Maricopa, what it is and why it's changing at this point. And I think Dr. Cantu spoke about it when she was, starting this this session, is that we're trying to change the culture. And not that the culture is bad, not that it's good, but it does need to be changed. And especially after COVID, things changed a lot. And I wasn't here before COVID, so I only know what people are telling me, but I do know that there needs to be a shift, and especially with the pandemic that brought about or brought to light a lot of concerns related to mental health and mental wellness. And I will say that when I first started my career in the early 90s, mental health was not at the top of the list. What was at the top of the list was physical activity and nutrition. And although those are important, mental wellness and mental health has really risen to the top in terms of concerns, whether it be in academic institutions or in for-profit corporations. So we're trying to change the culture to bring more of that into play. And we want to see how that affects the employees in specific ways in terms of their behavior. So let's talk about Wellness Maricopa for a moment. Wellness Maricopa sits under the benefits department in the district office, and it is the wellness arm of Maricopa of the district. But as the coordinator here in the district office, I work with 10 colleagues, and they are the wellness representatives of each of the college sites. So there is a wellness representative from each site that provides any of the initiatives, the programs, the events locally at that college. I work with them to do a few things, to communicate that information out to the employees district-wide. I work with them to build those events. I also help to collaborate in terms of what we're doing at DO and how that can reflect, positively on their particular college site. So we work together. We meet once a month. We come up with various initiatives and events. And one of the things we're working on now is a preventative health calendar. So every month in 2025, and hopefully at the end, in Q4 of 2024, we will have a preventative health event or activity that will be really focused at a campus, but will be strongly communicated from the district office so that everybody can participate. So it's been a great collaboration. They're great people. They really know their wellness and well-being, and it's just been a real advantage to be able to work with them. So why is Wellness Maricopa changing? Well, as I mentioned, really to change the culture, but one, to bring about engagement versus passivity. And one of the things that comes to mind is, our wellness incentive credit program. And it's been somewhat passive for the last couple of years, and rightly so, because we did come out of a pandemic. We're looking to shift that a little bit, make that a little bit more of an engaging type of program. We'll also introduce wellness in a new way. We're going to use our partners to introduce what they have as part of their wellness platforms and protocols and portfolios. There was an email that went out this morning to benefit eligible employees about how Aetna Insurance is changing their wellness. So we'll be communicating that. We want wellness to be top of mind. We don't want it to be this thing that just kind of sits on the side. Yeah, I should do that. We want these reminders to come out so that employees are like, wow, I can participate in that. That's great. We're not talking about marathons. We're not talking about intense exercise. We're talking about wellness that can touch everyone in different ways, and that speaks to the various aspects or dimensions of wellness. We have 8 of them, right? So we want to offer programs and initiatives and events that speak to each one of those dimensions so that people can access them where they are. And you know, it doesn't really depend whether or not they're athletic or not, doesn't depend on whether or not they're eating well or not. It just is, I want to participate. So we're making those things accessible to everyone. We want to encourage leadership as role models. A lot of the data when it comes to wellness, especially in corporations and even academic institutions and just big organizations, is that if leadership models the role, people tend to follow. That's going to take a little bit of time, but it is part of the culture change. And I do know that there are leaders here at the district who do practice wellness. We want to get them out there, and we want to get them to speak their truth so that other people can see it and can model that or can follow that. And we want to put MCCCD on the wellness map. What does that mean? It means doing research. It means publishing. It means presenting at large conferences. Get this district on the wellness map so that we can spout what it is we're doing, but also people can come to us and hopefully get answers and pull programs from us and protocols from us, and that we could be a leader, you know, in that way. Wellness Maricopa is really about partnership. It's about partnership with all of the wellness, you know, representatives I mentioned, but also with outside partners. And I have some of them listed here. Some of the partners that we have provide programs for our employees. VERTA is a diabetes reversal program. Sight on Sight is an on-site eye exam program, or really an optometry program that offers eye exams and you can get glasses and contacts. Kroger is our partner that provides vaccinations during our open enrollment. So there's a lot of partnership going on. And through these partners, we are able to provide programs for all of our employees. We also have programs that are more Wellness Maricopa driven. So the Wellness Opportunities DL is a really fun thing that I created about 3-4 months ago. Maybe 3 months ago, and it's an email that goes out every Friday morning. And what I do is I highlight things that are going on at the district, highlight some things that are going on outside of the district, like in Phoenix, and then give you some top headlines and research around wellness and well-being. Very, very quick. It's usually 1 or 2 pages, but keeps you engaged in terms of wellness and well-being, both at the district, outside the district, and also in science. We do have a sharing and caring program that is a once a month get together where people really share, and they share their wellness journey. They share some of their obstacles, some of their celebrations, but it's been great to hear stories from employees, how they've overcome, you know, adversity or overcome some challenges. And also the greatest thing is that if we do get a community of people and it's online, other people chime in and they tell them what worked or what didn't. And it's just a really nice community. So Sharing and Caring is a monthly event. I do a journal club. It's not journaling. It's actually going through some science in wellness and well-being and dissecting it, looking at how the methods really affect the application of the science. We've looked at things like how looking at nature affects wellness. There's been studies on that. We've looked at anti-inflammatory diets and rheumatoid arthritis. So a lot of different topics. I'm always open to suggestion, but that's also something that we're doing. We have a wellness newsletter and a calendar that comes out with all the events that are going on. And then, of course, we are in exploration of a possible district-wide platform that would bring wellness to each employee. So we're really excited about that. A lot going on in terms of the programs and the initiatives that we're offering. So with that, that's Wellness Maricopa. Now, how does that relate to research? Again, as somebody with, an academic bent and someone with a little bit of history in academics, I really wanted to bring about something that would kind of require some action on not only the researchers, but on the employees. And I wanted something where I could contribute to the developing knowledge of the particular field of mindfulness. And why do we do it? Well, it adds to the literature for sure. Like I mentioned, we can present our findings to colleagues. It enhances our visibility as an organization, and it expands the dimension of work that we do. So we're not just kind of sitting around and, sending emails, but we're really engaged in the research we're doing, in the data we're collecting. So what are we studying and why are we studying it? So a couple of months ago, I got introduced to Dr. Thomas Aubrey, who is the chair of the Division of Behavioral Sciences at South Mountain Community College. And he's a fountain of knowledge, and he obviously has his expertise in behavioral science. My expertise is much more in the sort of the clinical sciences, the physical sciences. His is much more in the behavioral sciences. And so we got to talking, and, we were even talking about like various platforms that are out there that engage mindfulness, like Calm and Headspace. And we were just thinking about ways like, how do we bring this to the employee pool? And so then he brought up the fact that he has a curriculum he's created. It's an 8-week curriculum. It sits on Canvas. His students take it as part of their curriculum. Why couldn't we open this to employees? So the study is really an 8-week curriculum of mindfulness and how it affects human behavior in a particular community college setting. Let me just say that there has been studies like this. So we're not the first ones, we're not super pioneers, but most of the research has been done with students. There has been some work, a little bit, done with some faculty, but most of these 8-week curriculums are curated for the specific location where they're deployed. Ours is not. So ours is just an 8-week mindfulness curriculum in general, and it's being open to the entire employee pool. That's anyone who's an employee of the district. So we're not just looking for a curated group, and we're not curating the mindfulness curriculum specifically. And that's what makes this a little bit different. So when you look at faculty and staff, especially after the pandemic, it's been shown in the data that they need support with mental health and well-being. And why is that? Well, from their standpoint and what they've, the information they've gotten from surveys is that it's the third most pressing concern. It also, the data shows that 2/3 of those individual surveys felt very or extremely stressed in their current position, and that 1/3 of faculty experienced burnout. Now, that is not new to us. We understand that. But what's really interesting here is that when it comes to faculty and staff, mostly faculty in this case, if a student comes to them with a mental wellness, mental health concern, it then gets put upon the faculty. And the faculty are not necessarily equipped, not all faculty, but I would say the majority are not equipped to cope with that. So then they're taking on the issue or concern that the student is coming to them with, and that becomes very difficult for the faculty member or the staff member to cope with it. So the poor mental health and the poor emotional health that we see that is related to increased burnout and stress then results in poor quality of instruction, and also how those students are serviced, especially if that faculty or staff member is not equipped to actually cope with the concern. And that's become much more pronounced over the pandemic. And we've seen that not only in academic institutions, but also in corporations as well. So our hypotheses are that 8 weeks of this online mindfulness training, and that is one of the aims of this study, which is very interesting. This is an online delivery. It is not an in-person delivery, which many of the research, or much of the research that's been done before, the data is related to in-person delivery of the mindfulness curriculum. Ours being online allows individuals to kind of self-pace. We feel that this will improve employees' behavior as it's measured by perceived stress, anxiety, both state and trait, and I'll talk about that in a moment. The familiarization with mindfulness and satisfaction. Our second hypothesis is that this online training is an appropriate method for the district to educate their constituency, their employees, and apply the practice of mindfulness. Let me go first to the first hypothesis for a second. So when it comes to stress levels, one of the things that we're measuring is perceived stress. I'll talk about that in a moment. The anxiety inventories we're looking at are state and trait anxieties. Now, to break that down, state anxiety is how you feel at the moment. Trait anxiety is the anxiety that you felt over the past 6 months. And then, of course, the familiarization with mindfulness. If you ask someone what mindfulness is, you might, or if you ask 5 people, you might get 5 different answers. There's a little bit of variety there. So what is the familiarization of mindfulness? How familiar are people and comfortable with the concept of mindfulness? And then, of course, satisfaction, both in terms of job satisfaction and life satisfaction. And we want to see whether or not this online training is actually appropriate for a very large employee pool to apply their practice of mindfulness and then for it to have a long-term effect. So what's the protocol? So we're going to evaluate the effectiveness of this online course over the course of 8 weeks, and we're going to look at 3 groups. The first group is going to be called a self-paced group. They're basically going to be delivered a YouTube video, which will be somewhere between 2 and 10 minutes on health. That could be related to nutrition. It could be related to movement. It could be related to mental health. It could be related to occupational wellness. It's just going to be 8 videos that will be sent out to them once a week. They'll watch the video and that's it. If they practice, mindfulness, great. If they don't, that's okay too. Group 2 is going to be our interactive group, and they're going to be provided modules from the actual course. So they will go through the 8-week curriculum. That curriculum goes into defining mindfulness, application of mindfulness, how mindfulness is positive, how it might be negative, things like that. When I say negative, how it can sort of conjure up feelings of anxiety and stress. But it'll go through the entire 8-week protocol. And the difference is this is interactive because participants will be asked to do things as part of the curriculum. Whereas with the YouTube group, they won't be asked to do anything. They'll just be sent videos. And then the third group is our control group, and they'll just go through their normal day for 8 weeks, and then they will be tested before and after. We're going to have 3 touch points with each participant. So the intake is going to be done by a research assistant. That will include signing a consent form, as well as if you know about consent forms, in that consent form will be the entire explanation of the study. And then that participant can then choose to participate or not. It's also important to know that when it comes to studies, especially on human subjects, the ethics of the study and the validity of the study are paramount. So when it comes to ethics of the study, we can't do anything unethical. We can't really deceive our participants. But what we have to do is we have to uphold the ethics of the study to allow a participant to withdraw without any question. So if you're a participant in a research study on human subjects, and all of a sudden in week 2, you say, this is not for me, the researcher cannot ask you why. That's it. You're withdrawn from the study, and they can't beg you to stay in the study. So we are going to follow that, to a T. and as well as the validity of the study. So that means that the instruments we use and the measurements we use to get our data are valid instruments. In this case, they're surveys. So we will have a pre-test. We'll be providing those various surveys that I mentioned, the state trait anxiety inventory, the perceived stress scale, the mindfulness survey, and a satisfaction survey. That will be provided to people when they start. It will also be provided to people at the end of week 8. On week 4, we will touch base with each person in each group, see how they're doing. Do they have any questions? Anything we can answer for them, and then they'll go through the next 4 weeks, and at week 8 the study will be completed once those surveys have been filled out. Now, it's also important to talk a little bit about the instruments, but also in terms of the design and who is involved. I'll talk about that when I talk about the players in a bit. So the perceived stress scale is a validated stress scale. It basically tells us how one perceives their stress level at a certain period of time. I believe it's within a month. So we're looking at how has your stress been in the last month. This is something that will be delivered either in person or electronically, where someone can fill that out. We will then code those answers, and those answers will then go into a database. Now, myself and Dr. Aubrey are blind to the participants. We have no idea who is involved or enrolled in the study. However, we do have a research assistant, who I'll mention in a moment, who will have a master list of everyone involved in the study. This is another way to keep the information valid. It's also, it is bordering on private health information, but we do not have access to that information. All we see are numbers in a spreadsheet. We have no idea who's enrolled in the study. The state trait anxiety inventory is a 20-question inventory, which again asks you questions about your anxiety at the moment and also your anxiety within the last 6 months. And the MAAS is the Mindfulness Assessment Survey. And that asks you questions about how familiar are you with mindfulness. And it would be really interesting to see that at the beginning of someone's naive to mindfulness at the beginning, and then they have a very decent understanding of the content and the application of mindfulness at the end. And of course, the satisfaction survey, full transparency, is not a valid survey, but we're basically using that to collect information on demographics, as well as to see how satisfied individuals are before and after the study. It's a little bit of a ding on the study, but it is difficult to find a survey that would be specific to our employee pool and satisfaction just out there. There's really nothing out there. So we created a satisfaction survey, and that will be the instrument we use. So what are some of the risks and benefits of the study? As far as risks, the risks are fairly minimal. But however, there is, for anyone who's ever practiced meditation or mindfulness, sometimes there is a welling up of anxiety when you start to meditate or you quiet down. There is definitely that risk, and it could be a feeling of being uncomfortable. And for that reason, again, participants can withdraw at any time they want if they feel uncomfortable doing this, especially if they're in the interactive group. But the risk of hurting yourself, of physical injury, is really minimal. The maximal benefits are reducing anxiety and depression, whether over the course of the study or long-term, improving coping skills, which will be talked about in the course curriculum if one is assigned to that group, increasing tolerance of others, improved connections with other people and relationships, reduced conflict, and also the ability to kind of step back from conflict, take a look at it with a different perspective, and then go back to it. And if you've been in performance success training, that reactive proactive kind of dichotomy, so being much more proactive and being much less reactive, improved awareness of behavior. So what would be super interesting is to see that people who haven't been through mindfulness are not really aware of their behavior and how it's affecting them and others, and then having a greater awareness of that behavior, especially after they've gone through the training, and then increase compassion as well toward others. So there's a lot of risks, and I do have a link to all of the references that we used in our application to get this study approved. So if you want to go through those references, all of these things are referenced there in those various publications. So when it comes to the players, it's going to be myself and Dr. Thomas Aubrey, along with Thomas Sievers, who is going to be our supervisor of research assistants over at South Mountain Community College. He's an extremely organized young man, very easy to talk to, really personable and professional, and he's done a great job so far. So he's going to maintain that master list and kind of work through all of the logistics of the intake of the study. Now, we've interviewed and hired, I should say it's an internship, right? It's sort of an unpaid internship that's for course credit or volunteer hours. 3 research assistants under Thomas. So there will be 1 research assistant that will be assigned to each of the 3 groups, and they will be really responsible for taking that intake for each participant in that group and then having those touch points with the participant throughout the study. Thomas is going to oversee the entire study from a research assistant standpoint. So we've got a really good structure here. We've got a good group of players. There is also one other individual who has been brought on who is going to help us with our statistics. And he is also, a faculty member here who has really, shown his engagement, and we're really excited to bring him on and kind of update him as to the progress of the study. And once we get our data collected, we'll then run it through our statistics and hopefully publish it in a journal. So how do you get involved? The link is right here. And obviously, this is being recorded, so you can copy or possibly just use this link here. This will go to a form that is in Google Drive. The form will just ask you some basic information about yourself. We will then contact you, and then you will go through the intake process. Also, if you have any other questions, you can always contact Thomas at his email, and you can do it that way. I would say you could contact me, but I don't want you to contact me because I need to be naive to the individuals who are interested in participating in the study or who are participating in the study. And lastly is my references link. Again, you're free to take a look at those references. Anything that I talked about related to the study can be found here. We're really, really excited and passionate about getting this study off the ground. And as Dr. Cantu mentioned, this is kind of our launch of the study. So we're putting out information both in email blasts, also doing presentations like this to let people know that this study is available. So if there are any questions on anything that I presented today related to either me, Wellness Maricopa, or our involvement in the district or the study, please feel free to chat through the chat here, or you can always reach out to me at wellness.maricopa@domail.maricopa.edu, and that's on the title slide. Again, I thank you so much for the opportunity to present today, to tell you a little bit about some of the things that we're doing in Wellness Maricopa and our new research study, and I am open to any questions. Thanks so much for your attention.
So this is our opportunity to ask questions. Does anybody in the virtual space, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat, or anyone in the in-person space have any questions? Oh, we've got Dominique. We'll start with that one. And then we do have a question in the in-person space. Just curious, are the control members advised to continue any mindfulness habits that they already may do?
So it's a really good question. So one of the things, this brings me up to our exclusion and inclusion criteria. So our exclusion criteria is if you're practiced at mindfulness, if it's something you do 3 to 4 times a week, we're probably going to exclude you from the study. The reason is we want individuals who are naive to it so that we can see that there is an effect of mindfulness. If we take someone who's practiced into the study and they're assigned to the mindfulness group, chances are we're not going to see an effect. To answer your question, though, we in the control group, we're not really saying anything about mindfulness or healthy habits. It's more about what you do on a daily basis, but we are going to ask you how often you participate in mindfulness. So, great question. If you are practiced in mindfulness, you're not going to be enrolled in the study. So that way, if you're somebody who gets assigned to the control group and you practice mindfulness 3 to 4 times a week, you're not getting enrolled in the study. Because again, it's not going to show the effect that we want to see in that control group. And we'd really like to have a naive group to basically all of the groups if possible, but mostly the mindfulness group. So I hope that answers your question.
We do maybe, while we see if there are other questions in the virtual space, we do have someone in the in-person space who does have a question.
This may be a
Sure.
little off topic, but I'm
Yeah.
very interested in, did swearing have any effect on exercise?
It actually did. Yeah. And if you're interested, email me and I'll send you the study. We specifically looked at power on a bike. So we studied how swearing affects really endurance and also power. And we found that while swearing, an individual is able to generate more power on a bike than they were if they were saying a neutral word. Yes. And it's been written up a lot. So if you look at swearing on exercise, you'll see my colleague was Dr. Richard Stevens, who, believe it or not, has done a lot of work in swearing and pain and all of that. So he's been out there a lot. But this was one particular study I collaborated with him on and we published. I'm more than happy to send it to you if you send me an email.
I have a question. So we actually have, thanks to, I have Dr. Eric Hensinger standing right next to me in the in-person space. Him and another group of colleagues have been doing meditation and mindfulness. And knowing that chances are, because they are already actively engaged in this practice and maybe not ready, is there still an opportunity for them, if they desired, to have access to the Canvas course just to like see how they can maybe continue to build on the practices that they've already started? I feel like, that could also just be a way of continuing to add to people's toolbox or to people's awareness and understanding of mindfulness. So just wanted to ask that.
Great question. Anyone has access to the Canvas course, but you just wouldn't be in the study.
Perfect.
But the Canvas course will be open to anyone. Yeah.
And the next question was, how do we access that Canvas course?
Great. Yeah, that's a great question. So once you contact Thomas, whether it be through the form or through his email, the Canvas course will be, the Canvas course would only be sent to those enrolled in that interactive group. But if you were someone who really just wanted to take the course and not enroll in the study, I'm more than happy to provide that information to you.
So there is another follow-up question. What is the vision
Sure.
of this research study? And maybe to add to that, what is also the length of it? I don't know if I quite captured how long you were going to be taking research participants.
Yeah, so it's kind of rolling admission. So we're starting today, but research takes a long time. I feel like in the research I've been involved with, you go through ebbs and flows. Usually at the beginning, you might get a lot of interest and then it wanes. So you have to kind of put out more information about it. I feel like to get 150 participants, which is what we're looking for, it may take 2 semesters. It may take even longer. But I think what's going to limit us is going to be the numbers that we get. So if we're getting 150, 175 people through the study, we may just stop it and then allow for the Canvas course to be available. If we're only getting 50, we're just going to be taking more people as we go. The length of the study is 8 weeks. It's 8 weeks no matter what group you're assigned to. One group will go through the course, one group will get the YouTube videos, and one group will just go through 8 weeks and then take those surveys before and after. But it's an 8-week length. And figure if you're in the interactive group, you're probably going to be spending 16 to 18 hours over the course of those 8 weeks, somewhere between 2 hours a week, 1 to 2 hours a week or so. Well, it should be, maybe as much as 16 hours. And then if you're in the self-paced group, you could spend, 30 minutes a week, because the videos we're going to send you are not very lengthy. And if you don't apply them, then you just watch the video. That's okay. And then in the control group, you're not going to really spend any time except for the time it takes you to fill out the surveys.
And then maybe what is the vision for this research study?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I think it has 3 prongs. One, so locally, what we're looking for is what is the effect of mindfulness on this particular employee population? What do we, can we change human behavior as we implement a mindfulness curriculum? That's one. So that's kind of local. Looking at it a little bit more globally, I think it's really important to understand that if we start to see that mindfulness has an impact on a large employee pool and mindfulness delivered online, then we can take a look at this as a template that we can then offer to organizations like ours, large colleges, large academic institutions, large organizations that have thousands of employees, where we can say, look, we've found, that there is definitely an effect of mindfulness on human behavior as it relates to anxiety, stress, and other aspects. We would like to bring this to another organization. And I think the other reason for doing this is just sort of the love of research, right? The vision here is to get people involved in research. It's to provide not only opportunities for faculty to get involved in data collection and research. I was mentioning the statistics, the statistician who's going to come on. He teaches as an adjunct, but he doesn't have his own research project. This is a way for him to collaborate with us and get into a research project, hopefully get a publication under his name. So it gives him the opportunity to collaborate and get involved in data collection. And the other part of it is to get students interested in this. I will say, and this kind of, maybe I'm being a little tangential, but I do teach research methods online. And one of the things that I have found over the last few years is that, and you probably recognize this, is that the validity of research is definitely being attacked, right? And I'll be the first person to say, you could read a research study and pick it apart, and it could be contrary to what was done 5 years ago. How is it possible that the data changed? Research changes all the time. We're constantly discovering new things. I want students to understand that. I want them to understand not only the process of research, but that research it's always in flux. You're always going to get changes. That's not a bad thing. And one of the things I said is, why do we do this? We do it to add to the literature. We do it to give a new perspective. So not only if faculty get involved and collaborate, but if students understand that about research, they're not going to attack it as much. Not them, but you know what I mean. The attacks on it won't be as vehement. They won't be as direct. We understand that science is not perfect. We're always discovering new things and new ideas and new information. I want students to get that piece of it. And so I think that's part of the vision of this, is to get more students involved with it so that we can tell them a little bit more about what research is and the importance of discovery.
Wonderful. We do have another question in the in-person.
Sure. Yep.
Hey, David, Eric Hunsinger, economics faculty. I'm that guy Liz mentioned who facilitate the meditation sessions here on campus. A couple questions. So first off, thank you for doing this. This is awesome. I'm really excited about it. I'm a little bummed because I don't think I meet the qualifications for the study, but I wanted to know what your recruitment strategy is and anything I can do to help with that.
That's a
instructor.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Because
I didn't mean to step on you. You go. I'll be quiet.
I'm sorry. Either as my role as an instructor or as my role as a colleague with fellow employees.
Yeah, I think that's great. So what we're going to do via the district office is we have a flyer. So we're going to be posting that flyer to all of the employees across the district. If there are specific employee groups that you feel like you have a connection with or could really reach out to, I'm more than happy to provide that flyer along with some general information about the study that if you wanted to forward an email, you could do that. We are going to put this in our newsletter as well. So that's our district office newsletter. I'll also be sending this out to all of our wellness representatives so that they can send this out to their constituencies and the employees at their college sites. What we're probably not doing is posting flyers because I don't know if there are public spaces that a lot of people look at. If there are, I'm more than happy to provide flyers to you so that you can post them. I think that's fine too. We can also put them, I don't know if there are social media pages. I'm not that proficient at social media, but if there are, we could also either post the flyer there or post information with a link to the form or to, Thomas's information. All of those ways are ways that we're recruiting. And we are doing a kind of like an all-comer recruitment because we're going to be able to exclude individuals who are really proficient at mindfulness once we go through the intake, but we're taking everybody. So the exclusion criteria is really only if you're proficient at mindfulness and also if you're not an employee of the district. Those are the two major exclusion criteria.
Well, as a daily practitioner, I would say I'm definitely not proficient in it, but
no one is.
Exactly. Just as an aside, my second question is, if you find results that are positive for your hypotheses, consider working with the Faculty Professional Growth Committee to offer this for FPG non-academic advancement.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be great.
By the way, lastly, you sound remarkably similar to John Kabat-Zinn because he's from New York too, I believe. And
oh, that's so funny. I know. Yeah, I know of him. Yeah.
You actually do you? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much.
That's great. Sure.
I don't see any other questions in the virtual. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Are you allowing potential participants to share which group they prefer to take part in? Is there a choice for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when it comes to research, one of the designs that is considered the gold standard is called a randomized double-blind control trial. So what that means is that participants will be assigned randomly to a particular group. It will be double-blind, meaning the researchers as well as the participants have absolutely no idea what group they're in. And it's controlled, meaning that there will be a group that does not get any intervention. 2 out of 3 ain't bad for us. So we have a randomized single-blind control trial. So in that case, the participants will be randomly assigned to a group. They're not going to be able to choose their group. And why do we do that? We do that because if they're able to choose their group, it's a selection bias, meaning oh, I'm really interested in mindfulness. I want to go in the mindfulness group. And we say, great, you're in the mindfulness group. And now you're somebody who's going to do great in the mindfulness group because you really, really wanted the mindfulness group. It's a little bit of a bias, and it changes the design of the study. So we need to randomly assign individuals to each group. The other part of this is that we cannot have a double-blind study. It's impossible to have somebody in the mindfulness curriculum not know they're in the mindfulness curriculum. So they can't be blinded to the group that they're assigned to. So the only people who can be blind to it are the researchers, and that's why we call it single blind. And then we also have that control part of it where we have that group that's not doing anything. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, we're not allowing participants to select what group they go into. They are randomly assigned to those groups.
Thank you. Any other questions? And just so everybody knows, we do try to do a follow-up, kind of close the loop with everybody who registered for today. We do have the copy of the flyer that was mentioned, and so we can definitely attach that. And then we will be working to put this up on our CTL at Estrella Mountains YouTube channel, and that sometimes takes a little bit closer to a week or so, but we can then follow up once that's ready so that people can have access to it in case you'd like to share it, or maybe there's something that you didn't quite catch that reviewing the recording could help with. Any final thoughts, questions? Absolutely. We're so glad. I saw a thank you for hosting this across the district. We are so glad that we could leverage technology today to bring over Dr. David Spearer, who gave us some really good information of not only where we are in Maricopa when it comes to wellness initiatives, also how we can contribute to research. How can we learn and also contribute? I think in academic settings, that's always the best part of our job, right? Is we can learn from each other to help us get stronger, better serve our students, and more importantly, better serve ourselves as colleagues that are working in really helping be transformative for so many people within our classrooms and also in our community. So I would like to thank everyone so much for joining us this afternoon. And with that, I will end today's session and be on the lookout for a follow-up email with some of the resources that were discussed today. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Cantu. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye-bye.